I get this question a lot, not just about weed, but about other drugs. People ask me if sober to me means just alcohol. They ask me, do I smoke weed? And hello everybody. I hope this lighting's okay. I have my setup here. I worked really hard to clear out my wall and set this up, so I hope it works out. Sorry for this. This is the only plain white wall I have, and it just happens to have the little doorstop on it, but we're gonna make it work. We're gonna make it work. So today I'm doing a Q&A video, and I'm so excited for this. I love watching these types of videos, and I've always wanted to do one myself. So I posted on my Instagram for you guys to ask me any questions you have involving sobriety in college, just sobriety in general, wellness, my life, my blog, anything that you want to know about me. And you guys pulled through. You really did. I have a lot of questions to go through. I'm really excited. And in the spirit of Halloween, I decided to paint a pumpkin as I do this. If you're watching this and it is nowhere near Halloween, this might not make a lot of sense. Enjoy me painting this pumpkin. I was going to carve it, but I decided painting would be easier because I didn't want to deal with all the guts and stuff. Yeah, let's just get started. I wanted to mention before we start that all of the answers to these questions are just my personal experience and my personal opinion. I am in no way a licensed therapist, counselor. All of this advice is just from what I've learned, so take everything that I say with a grain of salt. I don't really know what I'm going to do for this pumpkin. I think I have a general idea, so I'm going to start by mixing up some colors and painting the base of it, but actually, you know what? Let's look on Pinterest. Why don't we? You know what? We're gonna do the ghosts. We're gonna do the ghosts. All the questions I got from Instagram, and I wanted to keep them anonymous just in case people didn't want their names out there. So I'm going to put the screenshots of the questions up, but yeah, let's just jump right in. Did you notice yourself hanging out with different people after you quit drinking? This is a good one. Yes and no. I do hang out with a lot of different people now that I don't drink, and that's just mainly because I moved and I live with other roommates. So before, like 6 months ago, before I quit drinking, I lived with entirely different people, so I hung out with them, and now I live with entirely different people, so I hang out with them. So I do hang out with different people, but besides that, I definitely don't see my party friends as much, and I think we all kind of know what those are. For me, it was people that I knew would always be down to go out with me when I felt like drinking, or it was people that I would only see at parties. You know, you're like, oh hey, what's up? And then the only time you ever see them is when you're both out at the same party. So I definitely don't see those people as often, just because I don't go to very many parties anymore, and because of COVID, you know, we're not really going to any parties at all. As for my core group of friends, those have not really changed. There's no one that I really lost from my life because I quit drinking. I lost the people that I never really had a sober conversation with. I lost those party friends, and that's just because we don't really have much in common anymore. You know, there's people that I've bonded with and that I became friends with because we would go out together all the time and because we drink together all the time. And so now that I don't do that, I obviously don't see those people as often, and I've just realized that that's kind of the only thing we had in common, was that we drank. So it's not a bad thing, I don't think, that I've lost those friends, because when you get sober, you start finding people who align with your goals. But yeah, like I said, my core group of friends hasn't changed really at all, which is really nice. No one's really pushed me to the curb because I don't drink. That's something that I was afraid of, and that has not happened, so I'm excited. Oh my god, I'm sweating. How do you deal with negative thoughts about your past? And I'm assuming that that is referring to drinking, like things I regret doing. There are a lot of things that I've done while drunk, or things that I've heard that I've done while drunk, that I regret. And I used to stress so much over these things and think about things that I did for days on end, and if I didn't know what I did, I'd think about them for days on end and just stress myself out. And I know that I've hurt people as a result of my drinking, and I know that some of the things I've done are pretty unforgivable. I can just think of a certain few examples, but What helps me deal with those thoughts is just knowing that that's not who I am anymore, and knowing that those are decisions I made when under the influence, and that's not the real me. And I hope that all the people I've hurt as a result of my drinking, I hope they know also that that's not me anymore. So if you're watching this and I've hurt you as a result of my drinking, I am truly very sorry, and that's just something that I'm going to have to live with for the rest of my life, is the decisions I've made and the actions I've done, but knowing that I will never make a decision again under the influence that will hurt relationships or hurt my life. So if you're dealing with things and regrets about your past, know that you can't change the past. Obviously, we all know that, but you can choose to change the person that you are, if that person is someone who drinks a lot like me, and move forward from that, and just work on looking towards the future and knowing that you are evolving, you're changing into a better person overall. Whew, okay. I'm back. I had to put my hair up because I was sweating and open the window. But where were we? Thoughts on celebrating a birthday sober, not a sober B-day, a normal B-day but no alc. Oh, so not like a sobriety milestone, I think is what she means. Not like 6 months sober. Okay, I have to close this window because one sec. But just a normal birthday without alcohol. So I actually celebrated my first birthday without alcohol around a month ago. It was September 8th. Shout out all my Virgos. And I was kind of nervous for it because the only way I'd ever known how to celebrate my birthday for the past 5 years was to drink heavily, especially my 21st. Just the number one thing that I can say for you if you're about to celebrate a birthday sober is to not focus on pleasing your friends, because it is your birthday after all. That was something that I kind of had to realize, was I was going to do all this stuff that I thought my friends would find fun because I knew that they were also used to drinking. In reality, if they're your friends and they are there to support you, they're going to be fine with whatever you do. So me and my friends went to the beach. We brought like board games to the beach, and then went to dinner, and then watched my favorite show, Love Island, at night. So it was a mellow birthday, but it was just something I enjoyed doing. You don't have to go all out and plan this extravagant thing for you and your friends to enjoy. It's your day. Spend it doing things that you enjoy, not trying to please other people about what they enjoy. This is what happens when you live with people and you have to film a video. Okay, so I get a couple of questions about this, how to help a significant other if you suspect they have a drinking problem, or how to, just stuff about significant others or people that you care about that you might think have a drinking problem or that are going through it and you want to help. This is where kind of the disclaimer of I'm not a professional comes into play, because this is just from my own experience and what I have learned through having someone support me and through also going through it myself. So I hope these help. One thing I recommend you do if you have a significant other who you might suspect has a drinking problem, or that it does for sure and they've told you that and you're trying to support them, is to read my blog post that my boyfriend wrote from his perspective about my alcohol addiction, because in that he kind of gives some tips and shares his perspective, and it might be something that you can relate to and some of the frustrations that you are feeling. The number one thing that he wrote about in there was just to be patient, and I would totally agree with that. From the time I decided that I was going to quit drinking to when I actually did, that was a 6-month period. So it takes a lot of time, and it's really important to be patient and to not be frustrated and give up on them just because they can't do it the first time, because it is really hard, speaking from experience, to do it the first time. Also, tough love is sometimes needed. There would be a lot of mornings when I'd wake up and I'd be crying that I blacked out again or drank too much, and then my boyfriend would be like, oh, it's okay, you know, this is what everyone does in college, this is normal, and he would do that to try and make me feel better about it. And then I would kind of think like, oh, you're right, like this is kind of okay and this is what everyone's doing, and that's why I kind of didn't accept the fact that I had a problem for so long. And I know he was doing that to make me feel better and to try and console me, but something that he writes about and that he learned is that sometimes tough love is definitely needed, and you kind of just have to tell them, you know, this is what I see happening, and just tell it to them like it is and not sugarcoat it. And they may be defensive. I was super defensive at first, but that's just because they know that you're right, most likely. And so even if they deny it and it doesn't look like they're agreeing with you, the gears are working in their head and you have jump-started that thought into their brain and they're going to keep thinking about it. It will take some time to actually set out a plan and put that into place and offer them support and be there to support them, but don't do it at the expense of your mental health. If you're the only person that they're leaning on and you don't really know how to reply or how to act when they're coming to you with these things that they're feeling, suggest that they go see a professional or someone else, because it is super hard on the person who is trying to be there to support them if they don't have all the answers and they feel like all of their decisions and all of their drinking rests on this support. So just be careful with what you do and make sure it's not at the expense of your own mental health. Okay, I took the hair down. I felt like I looked bald. I get this question a lot. Not just about weed, but about other drugs. People ask me if sober to me means just alcohol. They ask me, do I smoke weed? And I don't, but that is just because I don't like it. And I used to like it. I don't know, it makes me really paranoid and I don't like feeling that way. I'm already a very paranoid person, so I don't like to enhance that paranoia with it. There was a time in my early sobriety where I saw this ad for these things called CAN. It was like CANN, and they're like drinks with a little bit of THC and CBD in them, and apparently they're supposed to make you like just chill out and more social. And I saw those and I was like, oh my gosh, that's gonna be my new drink of choice. It's not alcohol, but I was under the impression that I needed something to make me social. I couldn't just be social by myself, so I was going to replace alcohol with those. And then luckily they were only available like an hour away from me at a store, so I couldn't go get them, because I think if I had tried those in my early sobriety and saw the effects that they had, then I might have gotten dependent on those and just would have replaced one addiction with another, if that makes sense. So that was definitely not something that's healthy. So everyone has their own definitions of sober. It can mean sober from alcohol, sober from everything foreign that you put in your body. So I got two questions kind of similar. How have your decisions pre/post sober affected your family, and how has your family supported you through this? I'll kind of start with the background of what my family really knew before I got sober. Basically, I have a twin sister, and we would go out to parties and she would always obviously be the one who was kind of stuck taking care of me at the end of the night if it got to that point, because, you know, she's my sister and we had to go home together. And so my dad is actually an alcoholic, but he's been sober for 30 years now. He's been sober since way before he met my mom, and so he has to get up really early in the morning for work. So on the weekends, he works on the weekends, and when me and my sister would be going out in high school, he would be in bed by like 7 or 8 p.m. and then my mom would try really hard not to wake him up because she knew he has to get up at like 3 or 4 in the morning. So on the nights that I would come home not well, she and my sister would kind of deal with me, and then I think she wouldn't ever wake up my dad or wouldn't really get help from him. One, because she knew he needed to wake up early, but also because I don't think she wanted to worry him. That's kind of why I think my dad never really knew the full extent of my drinking, and a lot of my family didn't know it because I was really good at hiding it. Since I started this blog and this channel, my dad has told me that I'm way worse than he ever was, which kind of hurt a little. He just said he was sort of surprised at all the things I had done and the extent that my drinking had gotten to, and I think most of that surprise came from the fact that he never really saw my worst days in high school because he was always asleep, because we kind of hid it from him. As for how they've supported me, I think, you know, my dad has always been someone to offer his advice. And when me and my sister were growing up and started to drink in high school, he would warn us about the dangers of alcohol and kind of tell what he went through. And, you know, as a teenager in high school, we would both kind of be like, oh yeah, like whatever, and just dismiss what he said. I'm really thankful to have him in my life, someone who has gone through that themselves, and he offers me great advice with sobriety and just taking it one day at a time, and all my family supports me by reading my posts and watching my videos and kind of checking in on me every now and then. I'm very thankful to have such a supportive family and supportive friends in my life, because it definitely makes this a lot easier. When you feel urges to drink, what do you do? That is a good question. When I was first trying to quit drinking, and I was kind of drinking in the mornings and when my drinking was at its peak, the main urges that I would have came at really weird times. It would mainly come after I'd gone to the gym and done something like really productive. I would just get the urge to drink, and that's usually when I would like drink whatever I could find. And I don't know why that is. I think I just had all these endorphins from working out or from feeling productive, and I felt really good that I think I thought I could reward myself by drinking in a way. So to fix those urges, I would either just leave the house or call my boyfriend or call a friend or someone. Then my boyfriend would come pick me up, or I'd go on a walk, and just removing myself from the situation and then kind of rethinking it, like, okay, why did I want to drink right then? And knowing kind of my triggers. So knowing that after a workout and after I've done something productive that I'm going to want to feel like drinking. As long as I knew that, it was easier for me to recognize it and then not act on the urge. I don't get urges really anymore. Like I don't crave it as often. The only times that I ever really feel any sort of urge is like sometimes I'll open the freezer and not remember that there's a bottle of alcohol in there, and then there is, or I'll see it. We have like a little bar cart because I live with 5 other people, so they have alcohol. So sometimes if I just see it, I'll just like remember about the times that I used to see it and then just chug it. And then sometimes I'll think like, oh, what if I did that? Like no one would know and I could just hide it, when I know that's not what would happen. But the main thing that helps me not get urges now is by staying busy and is by finding a hobby. So instead of when my friends are out and they're posting Snapchat stories of them drinking and I'm sitting at home, instead of looking at the Snapchat stories and feeling FOMO, I'll just keep myself busy. And I do that with my blog and with my YouTube, and I like to read. And so having that distraction is something that really helps me when I feel that way, because that's another time that if I do get urges, it's when I'm missing out on something. The pumpkin is dry, ladies and gentlemen. How do you deal with the constant promotion of alcohol abuse on social media? And I think I know exactly what this person was referring to. I will leave some examples on the screen. But it's these memes where they're just promoting like unhealthy drinking behaviors, and I totally relate to that because that is something that kept me from quitting for so long. I remember seeing things like, you can't drink all day if you don't start in the morning, and seeing little memes like that, and I'd look at them and be like, oh, well, because it's a meme, it means that it's really common. And so I would think that my problems weren't as bad as I thought they were. Kind of the way I deal with it now, if I see something like that, I'll just unfollow the account, because I used to follow a lot of like the Barstool and Fifth Year accounts that just really promote unhealthy drinking behavior. Over the past 6 months, I've learned a lot about alcohol and the effects that it has on our bodies and healthy versus non-healthy drinking. And so when I see things like that, it's easy for me now to kind of ignore them, whereas when I used to see them, they would validate my drinking behavior. Whereas now when I see them, I know that it's not a healthy thing that they're promoting, and I can look at it and be like, that's not healthy, and just ignore it and keep scrolling. When did you realize you had to change your drinking habits? I'm assuming this means when I knew I had a drinking problem and that something needed to change. I'm assuming that that's what that means. I've said this before, but I never really hit a rock bottom. You know, there's people who kind of hit the bottom of bottoms, and that's how they know that they need to make a change in their life and turn their life around and quit drinking. For me, it was kind of just an accumulation of things. The time that I realized that I 100% definitely had a drinking problem was the summer going into my junior year of college. So not this summer, but last summer, when I drank in the morning after a party with my friends, and they all noticed, and I had to admit, like, that wasn't the first time I've done that. So that was kind of, I remember writing in my journal, like, I know for sure that I have a drinking problem. I want to get help. I want to go to counseling. The time that I knew that I needed to quit drinking altogether, and when I finally realized that I couldn't moderate, was February of this year, when I went to a party with my friend, and I remember thinking and telling a few people at that party about my limits, and they would even come up to me and check on me and be like, are you okay? And I would just kind of be angry with them and sneak away and get drinks. That next morning I went to a study session with that same friend that I went to the party with, and I was so ashamed that morning because I drank more than I wanted to, and so I actually ended up bringing this like bottle of wine to the study session and like sneaking away and drinking it in the middle of the study session secretly. And so once I sobered up from that, I think the next day is when I decided I need to quit altogether. Like, moderation is just never going to be a thing. And I want to mention something, and this is something that I've seen get talked about a lot in the sober Instagram community, is that you don't need to have a drinking problem or to hit rock bottom or to do any of that to stop drinking. If you don't like the way you feel when you're drinking, or if it is harming your mental health, there's no shame in stopping drinking just because you want to. You don't have to tell people that you have a drinking problem. You don't have to have a drinking problem to quit. Some people just don't like drinking, and that's perfectly fine. All right, we're winding down here. We got a couple more. When you tell someone you don't want to drink and they try and pressure you, what do you say? Thankfully, since I made the announcement that I was sober, no one has ever tried to pressure me to drink. If that's happening to you and you're sober and you've told them you're sober, you need to get that person out of your life, because they are not a friend. They are not going to support you. Definitely, like, telling people that I'm sober and making the big announcement stopped a lot of people from pressuring me to drink. If you're meaning like before you quit drinking, what are some things you could tell people when you don't want to tell them you're not drinking but you don't want to drink that night? I've pulled all the stops before I was sober. I would tell people I was on antibiotics, I needed to drive later, I had a busy work day the next day, I needed to get up early, I was sick, I'm on a health kick. There's a lot of things you can tell people if you're not ready to tell them that you're not drinking. I'm socially awkward / shy when I'm sober and people are drinking. I'm not as fun. Any tips? I used to believe this 100% myself. I thought that once I quit drinking, I wouldn't be as fun and people wouldn't want to hang out with me. And then my therapist actually told me something that has stuck with me to this day. He said, has anyone ever told you that you're not fun when you're drinking, or is it just something that you kind of made up in your head? And that was so true. No one ever came up to me and said, Steph, you're not as much fun when you're not drinking. No one ever said that to me. That was something that I concocted in my head. It was actually the opposite usually. I was less fun when I was drinking because I was getting wasted off my butt and ruining everyone's night. So you need to think, who is putting these thoughts into your head? Is it you? You're just telling yourself that you're not as fun? Or do these people actually not think I'm fun? And it's usually the former. So I definitely know the feeling of kind of being socially awkward and uncomfortable when everyone else is drinking, and that's definitely going to happen in the beginning. But something I've learned is that if I have like a drink to hold when everyone else is drinking, even if it's just like a soda or something, or kombucha, that makes me feel a lot less awkward. The first few social things that you go to where you're sober and people aren't, you're gonna feel so uncomfortable. I felt so uncomfortable and I left all of them after like 30 minutes. But the more things that you go to, the easier it's gonna become. So the more times that you experience an event sober, you're gonna leave that event and be like, wow, I had so much fun. I didn't even need alcohol. And that's just gonna motivate you to continue to going to these events sober, and you're gonna realize, maybe I really don't need alcohol. Maybe I'm just as fun sober. Yeah, you just need to kind of push through it and keep going to things, because like I said, the more things you go to, the easier it will become. I don't know if you can see where I'm going with this. It's supposed to be ghosts. I don't have time to wait for this to dry and to finish filming it right now because I have to go to class, so I'll add the clips in of me finishing it later. But that was the Q&A. Thank you guys so much for watching. This was so much fun. I loved this type of video, and I'm hoping to do a lot more in the future, maybe like one every month, every 2 months, I don't really know. So if you want to get in on the next one, you can follow me on my Instagram at funshipblog, because that's where I post that I'm doing a Q&A and where you guys can send in questions, so be sure to follow me on there. Of course, if you have any other questions, you can DM me on Instagram, leave a comment, contact me through my blog, and I'll be happy to answer as many as I can. So thank you guys so much for watching. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe if you want to see more videos from me, and I will see you in the next video.